Hello everyone, my name is Noel and welcome to a brand new series I'm calling No Filter. Contrary to the title, it's not about Snapchat or something like that, but instead will be a series where I tackle topics from the Star Wars universe, answer viewer questions and much more, all without the use of a script. I know it sounds like a bad idea, but seriously, the only thing I have in front of me right now is a picture of Darth Vader twerking, and I wish that was a lie. He has some surprisingly nice buns, I will tell you that much. You know, I'm not afraid to admit it. Anyway, today I'll be tackling the Mount Rushmore of Star Wars. Now, I'm not sure if most of you out there will already know what I mean, so just in case that is the case, you know, if you're like, what, Mount Rush Star Wars, what does that mean? I will explain it. So, Mount Rushmore, you know, it's a big monument thing with the faces of four pretty influential dudes. It's a somewhat large stone sculpture on the side of some hills somewhere. Yeah, I'm not the best at describing things, but I will give you an example to make life a little easier for us all. So if the WWE had a Mount Rushmore, for example, then you would most likely see the four faces of Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and John Cena. Of course, some of you out there will already be looking to debate with me, I can just see it now. The Bizans, if that's even your real name. Whereas the Master of Pain, he was so good back in Memphis. Look, I don't know, okay, it's just four people who either defined an era or have proven invaluable to the subject in question. Give me a break, just chill out, alright? So with that in mind, I will now present you all with two Star Wars Mount Rushmores. One for the characters within the universe itself, and one for influential personnel behind the camera, so to speak. First up, let's take a look at four characters who define Star Wars, and by that I mean the Jedi, Sith, bounty hunters, and much more from the main saga films. I'm not going to delve into the expanded universe because that's a massive can of worms that could spark war in the comments below. It could get ugly. So don't expect to see the likes of Darth Revan and Grand Admiral Thrawn and other people, you know, from that thing. But without any further ado, the first name on my personal list is none other than Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader. I know he's not in the current trilogy, the sequel trilogy if you like, other than his mask, and other than, you know, Kylo Ren being like, oh my granddad, he's so cool, right? But he is the main character, pretty much, throughout the prequels, and it's all about his redemption, right, in the original trilogy. Luke Skywalker is the main character, technically, of the original trilogy, but it's all about Darth Vader, his fall to the dark side, and his, you know, his coming to the light and stuff like that. He's one of the most iconic villains ever, so he's quite, you know, a big name to kick off of here. And I already mentioned him, Luke Skywalker, the second name on my list, the main character in the original trilogy. He's played a pretty big part in the sequel trilogy. I know people are going to be like, Luke Skywalker, out of character, ugh, would he really disconnect himself from the Force? Ugh, hate Disney, Kathleen Kennedy, ugh. But yeah, you have to admit that Luke Skywalker, bit of a big deal as well. Basically, if you're a Skywalker, you basically make this list, which takes me to my next one, Rey. No, I'm joking, she's not a Skywalker, she is on the list, no, and this is going to be controversial. Right, the first two self-explanatory. This one, it's gonna be a bit tougher. Alright, so Rey's on this list because she's the main character of the sequel trilogy. See what I'm doing here? Main character. So it's gonna be interesting what my next pick is if I'm just picking. There's only 3 trilogies. Who's gonna be the 4th pick? But yeah, Rey. She's the main character for the sequel trilogy. It's basically on her shoulders to rebuild the Jedi Order if she so wishes, and she's not a fan favourite by any means, but this is not like a Mount Rushmore of who people love. It's influential characters and characters that Star Wars would be forever different without, you know what I mean? And speaking of that, the final name on my characters for the Star Wars Mount Rushmore, the first one I'm tackling here, is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now this one was so difficult because, as I said, the other ones, you know, it's just pick the main characters from the different trilogies and whatnot. Obi-Wan Kenobi, this could have went to Han Solo, it could have went to maybe even someone like Boba Fett or something, you know, someone a bit lower down in the pecking order but still, you know, a fan favourite and stuff like that. But I chose Obi-Wan Kenobi because, again, plays a massive role in both the prequel and original trilogy, and he's even influencing easy for me to say the sequel trilogy as well. And hey, they're planning on making an Obi-Wan Kenobi spin-off movie, so yeah, that's my 4. I'm not good at explaining things, but I hope I did an alright job. That's my 4 names for the Star Wars Mount Rushmore in terms of characters. But moving on to the personnel behind the scenes who helped shape the Star Wars saga into the formidable franchise we all know it today. And how could I not start off with this man straight off the bat? Yes, that's right, George Lucas. Again, this one's not one you really need to explain because George Lucas, he was a person that created this all. Without George Lucas, there's no Star Wars. Without George Lucas, the world is a much muddier place. It's a much worse existence than it already is. That got deep, didn't it? But yeah, George Lucas helped change cinema as we know it today. Try and picture what cinema is like without George Lucas. I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but it's very difficult, isn't it? Try and picture the landscape. This is getting very philosophical, but try and imagine the landscape without George Lucas. But anyway, in terms of Star Wars, of course, he could be all 4 faces if you want. He's that important, and yeah, you could argue he kind of ruined Star Wars a little bit for the prequel trilogy, but as someone that grew up with the prequels, I thought they were amazing at the time, I'm not gonna lie. So even I seen Darth Maul for the first time, I think my tiny little brain exploded, and tiny because I was a kid, but it's probably still tiny to this day. But someone that's a bit more sort of a curveball is Marcia Lucas. Now, you might not know who that is. I mean, the second name would probably give it away, but that was George Lucas's wife, you know, back in the day. And her importance to Star Wars is basically A New Hope would not be A New Hope without her input. There's plenty of videos on YouTube of this actually, and there's actually, you know, I was actually planning on making a video on this just of her importance in the future. I might have to do that in the next few weeks or so. But she basically turned A New Hope into something that was watchable because George Lucas is one of those guys that has a million ideas, and the vast majority of them need fine tuning, shall we say, but he has this one amazing one that's just this belter, like Star Wars, for example. And Marcia Lucas was one of those people that were able to take his vision and actually make it work. So for example, she helped edit A New Hope and make it actually watchable. And she had so much input behind the scenes as well to make scenes better to watch. And so again, Marcia Lucas, a bit of a curveball perhaps. One that's probably not, my next name here is Irvin Kershner. Yeah, the reason he's on here is because Irvin Kershner, right? He directed The Empire Strikes Back, for those who don't know. It's personally my favourite Star Wars film. It's most likely the vast majority of Star Wars fans' favourite Star Wars film as well. It was such an arduous task. George Lucas stepped down, so he needed someone to direct the sequel of one of the biggest films of all time. Like, that is pressure. I don't care who you are. So Irvin Kershner had so much on his shoulders, but not only did he manage to actually make, you know, a decent enough sequel, he somehow surpassed A New Hope as well and perfectly set up Richard Marquand for Return of the Jedi, which that is impressive. Imagine being able to be like, yeah, I directed The Empire Strikes Back. Pretty cool accolade to have. So he's on this Mount Rushmore, this behind the scenes Mount Rushmore as well as the final man who I'm about to name here, which is Ralph McQuarrie. Now this is kind of like George Lucas, this goes without saying. Like, it wasn't too difficult picking these Mount Rushmores actually, because for me anyway, you know, there's certain names that are just, they have to go on. And Ralph McQuarrie for me is one of those names because without his input, Star Wars just wouldn't be Star Wars. You look at his concept art that's still being used to this day. The likes of Star Wars Rebels just were like, oh yeah, we can use that concept for Chopper, we can use this location for the Thal. You know what I mean? This man has had so much influence, and it was basically him that designed all the characters as well. You know, it was his paintbrushes that were able to initially realise George Lucas's vision, and because of that, Star Wars looks the way it does because of him, pretty much. So those are my 4 names, 8 names in total, I guess, and that is going to be it for episode 1 of this brand new series, which again I have aptly titled No Filter, nothing to do with Snapchat. Let's just make that abundantly clear. But let me know if you agree with my picks for these 2 Mount Rushmores, because I know not everyone will agree with me, especially when it comes to Rey, perhaps. But yeah, let me know who would make your 2 Mount Rushmores in the comments below. This should get pretty interesting, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed today's video. If so, press the like button, and to help out the channel a little bit extra, please do consider pledging to our Patreon page. And for weekly unfiltered content, press that subscribe button and notification bell to keep it locked here to the Kangaroos.